Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Robert Stickle. I'm also joined by my colleague Jim Patterson. Jim will be today's presenter and will discuss the topic of drive organizational growth using OnePlan for professional services automation. This webinar is a new addition to our series of PSA webinars, so if you enjoy this video, feel free to watch the others we have available on our channel and look towards the next installment, which we'll be releasing soon. And as always, I hope that today's presentation grants you some insight into the world of project and portfolio management and gets you excited for the new developments happening within the industry and here at OnePlan. Thank you again. I'll now turn the presentation over to Jim.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. In our ongoing webinar series, just showing once again the flexibility of OnePlan and how it can be used for a variety of different purposes for project and portfolio management, and in this case, in a professional services automation use case where people are doing professional services either for internal or external customers. So let's start with some premises about why this is important. Customer centricity is really where we're at today in the marketplace. We've gone through a number of different revolutions in the marketplace over the decades. We've all heard about the age of manufacturing and assembly lines and the things that really revolutionize the way we produce things. The age of distribution, where distribution networks and distribution centers took us to another level. The age of information and the advance of computers and personal computers in the cloud, it really technologically advanced us to another stage of growth and an era within the marketplace. And now we're really in the age of the customer with all those other things in place. We really have customers who are more educated and, quite honestly, more demanding in what they expect from their providers and from their service providers and their vendors. And to that end, we have to find ways to get better as organizations to serve them and actually use our customer service as a competitive advantage against other organizations that might compete with us. And this is true at all levels and all roles within the organization, whether it be the account managers that interface directly with the customers, your project managers that execute on services engagements for those customers, the team members who are actually instrumental technically to make those things happen, and then the financial folks that handle things like the accounting and the billing and the profitability and those types of things. It affects everybody in that process. Now, in the state of the market today, customer experience, analysts say that customer experience will overtake price and product as the key brand differentiator that people use to choose who they're going to do business with, whether it be online profiles, whether it be online reviews, whether it be other word of mouth, that customer experience is going to be paramount in whether or not we can actually secure in the first place and retain our customers. From a productivity perspective, technology today is such that there's a number of dimensions to this professional services automation. And if we're using fragmented processes and tools, for example, we may waste a lot of time in productivity when it comes to things like task switching to different tools, duplication of data. Maintaining all of that can cost us productivity and cost in our organization. And they're saying the global cost of that is over $450 billion a year. And then just the speed of business. We have to get better at what we're doing and better at responding to change. Organizations embracing digital transformation and really adopting things to help become more agile are saving significant money and generating more income each year. So service market trends and analysis for the service management industry. More and more, the economy is project and based and people-centric. Services-oriented businesses more than brick and mortar things these days. And a good chunk of our organizations are delivering services to our customers. Our clients, as I mentioned, demand greater predictability and accountability and value for the services spend. We have to justify the spend and why they would spend on the services in the first place, and then hold us accountable as we spend them. There's globalization, centralization, modernization, streamlining of operations that's going on. We have geographically dispersed teams. People are working more and more virtually and remote. How do we make all that happen and do that effectively? We have a diverse workforce across a variety of generations and cultures, so that globalization and that decentralized workforce is about Gen X, Gen Y, baby boomers, whatever it might be, and different expectations they have on tools and user experience on the solutions that they're using. Now, there's a trend where service projects are now becoming more and more fixed fee, fixed time, meaning you got to manage them more effectively. You just can't keep billing, meaning you have to manage those costs, deliver on an effective basis so that at the end of the day, your engagements can be profitable. And also there's an increase in agile delivery, which means we have to put a new framework and a new approach in place and get a harness on that and deliver that in a profitable way. And often this is accomplished, and we'll talk about this in a little bit, in a hodgepodge of point solutions, spreadsheets, and emails, meaning the cohesiveness of a professional services automation culture or professional services culture isn't always cohesive and well integrated. What that means is disparate systems and data silos are impacting success, whether it be one-off tools for specific purposes, whether it be spreadsheets, whether it be things that are being done in emails et cetera. And that can be segmented by the different roles that are involved in the whole professional services automation process. For example, project managers may be working with a PSA solution or a PPM solution to execute on the projects, and they may have reporting and business intelligence that they're working with, and the resource managers can partake in that. The account managers who are working directly with the customers, have that customer interface and securing the business and maintaining the relationship, they may be working in a completely separate CRM system. Your team members who are actually working and executing on the projects that we have may be in a collaboration tool. They might be doing time and expense in another tool. There may be social collaboration in another tool, and that may be totally disconnected from what's going on in managing the projects. And then there's finance. Finance that has to basically do the billing and invoicing, collections, and actually do financial reporting to help us with the visibility into how we're doing and are we doing things in a profitable fashion. These can be all segmented, and if they are segmented, as they typically are, there's a lack of efficiency and, let's just say, undue costs that we can possibly pull out of this process. The impacts of disconnected process and systems, a number of them. Here's just a smattering. Low response times to the customer, a segregated workforce, no consistent process, communication barriers, confused and unhappy employees, ineffective ways of working, customer dissatisfaction, high turnover because of burnout, etc. The idea, these are all things, unless we harness this and bring this together in a more cohesive way, we could be impacted by some of these net results. So really, process maturity in this area will drive business performance. Analysis by SPI Research says that if you think about a level of maturity from level 1 being the lowest to level 5 being the highest, the top 5% that reach that level 5 percentage, as you can see, 30% or 55% are in that lower level 1 or 2. Those bottom two average 2% losses on their engagements and their services efforts, where the top 5 that get a harness on this process maturity actually have been shown to show on average 31% profit on their engagements. So maturity is determined through alignment and focus within across functions, helps make us become more profitable. And it can show itself in a variety of different ways. For example, as we put our proposals out there in a services engagement fashion, and we put proposals out to our customers and we make bids, the bid to win ratio increases. The deal pipeline relative to quarterly bookings forecast, the percentage of that goes up. The employee billable utilization goes up with maturity. The projects delivered on time goes up over time. The average revenue per billable consultant increases. The annual revenue per employee increases. Just overall project margins on our individual projects go up. And just earnings overall from an organization, that 31% is shown through the survey that the SPI Research did over about 257 organizations with an average size of 1,300 employees. So traditional PSA capabilities, what are those? Well, there's the sales aspect of that, from a CRM perspective and managing those sales opportunities. Then there's the project planning, because those things, if they are successful in the selling, they become projects. There's resource utilization and allocation across things. There's team collaboration, as we have to work together in order to drive to a successful outcome. Since we're billing to customers, we generally have to do time and expense because we have to bill those things to the customer and justify them and account for them to the customer. There's the project accounting to make sure that we're being profitable across these projects and to what degree. And then there's the reporting and the business intelligence across that. So that's fairly standard across all that. And we start talking about kind of a new wave or next generation of PSA. OnePlan is really designed to extend those traditional PSA capabilities or professional services automation and adding things like improved visibility within the sales process of how we're doing in the execution of the projects, really tying those things together. Having more effective handoffs of the project from the sales process to when you hand it over to your delivery organization and the consultants who have to deliver. Making that handoff more effective is important. Supporting multiple methodologies. In the past, most services organizations were delivering in a very waterfall fashion, and organizations are blending more agile type of frameworks and approaches into the mix, as well as and even hybrids. Also, the integration of use of multiple tools and solutions, meaning you might have tools you're using already for waterfall planning or for agile planning, etc. And you may need to use those, or it may be dictated by your client that you use those. The idea is to be able to bring those tools into the mix, into your overall PSA and your portfolio of efforts that you have. Being able to do scenario modeling to react to change and look at alternatives for reacting to changes on the ground that you can adjust to and then respond to. We have AI tools now to ensure that data is complete and accurate, and also to give us analysis. And then predictive analysis and decision support with comprehensive reporting are things that we can extend the traditional PSA solution into. So what OnePlan does has pre-configured solutions, and professional services automation, or PSA, is definitely one of them. And we can connect from the strategic level of organizations all the way down to execution. And this picture here depicts, a portfolio at the top in OnePlan, but down below potentially. Now, let me preface this by OnePlan does not require the use of other planning tools, but it has built connectors to bring in data from things like Microsoft Project Professional for waterfall plans, or maybe Microsoft's new project for the web, or maybe Azure DevOps or a Jira for more agile planning, to bring those into the mix and have that fold in and roll up into the portfolio. So OnePlan has a number of different solution configurations pre-configured, and professional services automation is definitely one of them. And it really helps those organizations that are doing customer-facing, billable projects, and helps us with more data-driven project management, providing the right resources at the right time and adjusting to changes, and really having visibility that allows us to finish those engagements on a profitable basis. So what OnePlan is providing integrated PSA such that, unlike say an IT PMO, where you field a number of requests and ideas and you got to vet and prioritize them and do business cases, you're essentially selecting your projects. In this type of environment, you're out there working with customers and prospective clients, and you're putting proposals and statements of work out there. And you're tracking those in a CRM system, more than likely, to understand where your potential opportunities are. And as those opportunities come to closure, that usually means that the customer is giving you, or the client is giving you, the indication that they've selected you. So that's one step in that process. And then ultimately, once they sign on the dotted line and you have a contract, those things will become your projects. And where that comes in, those things can then be connected to and passed to OnePlan as projects and opportunities that we can manage all the way through the execution lifecycle. And we're going to talk about what that means in a little bit. And then ultimately, as we work and execute in OnePlan, not only can we feed data back to the CRM system with some high-level indications of how we're progressing, so that the folks interfacing with the customer directly from an account relationship perspective can actually always have their finger on that pulse. We're also providing information out to the financial system, where we're doing financial reporting and measurement, where we're also doing billing and receivables and those types of things. The idea is to tie this all together in a way where we're not doing duplication of effort, but we're leveraging the efforts of each of these nodes in order to have a cohesive process and solution. So what OnePlan adds to that traditional mix is the ability to do improved proposal estimating. so that you can get through that early process when it's maybe even still an opportunity, and be able to say, all right, the customer's indicated they're going to go down this road with us. We can actually do our estimating in the way that we're going to execute on the project, whether it be more waterfall like you're seeing here, or maybe in a more agile plan. And then that way we can have this thing costed out, estimated out, but then be ready to go when we're ready to execute on this, to execute according to a plan. We also have resource planning that comes out of this. As we align resources with our efforts and we assign them and quantify that, we can look at time-phased information as to what resources are going to be required, not only on an individual project, but how that aggregates across your entire organization, and indicate maybe through some graphicals, like you see here, where things might be in an over-allocation situation across the board. And then what if analysis, being able to do forecast modeling, to be able to look at the things that are on your plate from a portfolio perspective and say, what is the net resource impact of all that? What's going to be required? Do we have shortfalls? Do we have underutilization in certain areas? Do we have to set expectations with our client on the timing of when we can start, when we can actually get these things done? That type of resource forecast modeling allows us to do what if analysis so that we can make better decisions. There's also financial scenario modeling. So as we have dollars associated with this, we can actually see, do these things fit within our targets? Do we have the dollars to do the things that we want to do? The idea is to be able to look at it from both a resource and a financial perspective. And then the seamless sales to delivery transition. The plan that we built to, to really put together our initial estimate can ultimately become the plan that we use to execute on and track the project jointly with the customer. So all the things that we did consistently transition from the sales process to the delivery and execution process of the services themselves. Now, we had mentioned in those plans, we can build those things right in one plan like you saw on the last screen. But if you have other planning tools with planning data in them that you've already done or you've invested in, we can connect that and bring that data in from Microsoft Project Professional, Project for the Web, Microsoft Planner, Smartsheet, even other tools that we have involved. So optionally, you can bring those in because we can accommodate all that if need be, if you have a preference or if the customer has a preference or a demand. And Agile really accelerates the value to delivery. So more and more organizations, including our own, are doing more Agile approaches and sprint-based approaches to delivering value incrementally. So instead of the traditional waterfall, which we might use more iterative Agile approaches and time box those different deliveries across the board. OnePlan provides you the ability to plan your projects in one or the other of these, or even in a combination of both, where maybe your project has, your engagement has some components that are maybe waterfall in nature and some components are Agile. We can accommodate that hybrid as well. So if you look at that, we're looking at a screen here where OnePlan is a backlog of requirements and user stories and tasks potentially within those user stories, and then sprint planning as to what elements of these are going to fit into what sprints and in which time boxes. And we can do all that planning here, or that data can be derived like we did with the waterfall plans from another tool, like from an Azure DevOps or from a Jira. And those connections can interactively and routinely bring in that data to update your portfolio of engagements and projects that you have. Now, OnePlan is adding a lot more in the AI area. We have an insights or a homepage for individual users and contributors based on their role that basically gives them insights on things that require their attention. Give them ready access to the plans that they're specifically involved in so they don't have to navigate through an entire portfolio to get to the things that they're working on. Even conversation threads that might be happening on the things they're involved in on specific tasks or work elements, or even on the projects themselves. And maybe some alerts as to something that may be due soon, etc. And these are configurable pages so that the alerts and the insights are related to you. And on top of that, in recent months, we've added AI natural language queries into this. So we have what we call Sophia GPT, is AI as a collaborator in helping you manage your portfolio of efforts, your individual work efforts, your resource plans, etc. And it really is natural language based. It's based on Azure's OpenAI GPT, which is a more controlled and bounded instance of this than, say, the general OpenAI or general ChatGPT that you might have played with out there in the marketplace. And it understands natural language questions, responds in real time, and it helps us do things like streamline, do strategic planning, help us with the decision-making process and analysis. It not only leverages data from OpenAI's large network of data sources, but also from your OnePlan data itself, and combining those that knowledge to provide analysis that we may not come up with on our own. And it helps us with some time-consuming things like data entry, information retrieval, analysis, finding data anomalies, and much more. So we'll explore this a little bit today. And the integrations that I'm talking about, these are not, let's build and custom code these things. These are out-of-the-box productized integration that OnePlan's OneConnect platform makes available to us. There's in the professional services, the CRM ones that we might work with, the work management from the project management perspective, the software development, there's the Azure DevOps and the Jira up there, connectors to specific financial management systems or other more generic things that work with extracts from those types of things. The idea is these integrations are provided as part of the service that OnePlan provides. On top of just integrating data between these solutions, that user experience, that efficiency that comes from minimizing task switching and application switching between for users allows us to consume OnePlan. Now, OnePlan is designed to be used directly in your browser in its simplest case. But if you're in a solution that uses Microsoft's Power Apps, you can consume OnePlan right from within your Power App. It's an authorized Microsoft Teams application, so you can actually work with it and collaborate on the things in here right within Microsoft Teams. If you're using Azure DevOps for your Agile pieces, we have extensions that allow you to access and use OnePlan right while you're in Azure DevOps without leaving Azure DevOps. The same holds true with Dynamics, we'll talk about today. The same holds true with SharePoint. And even non-Microsoft tools like Jira have the ability for us to have that fused UI approach to help you stay in the same hub more often than you are probably today. So OnePlan, we talked about bringing capabilities for NextGen PSA. So what's that bridge? So for example, let's say you were using Salesforce as your CRM solution, and you've managed your customers and your accounts in here. And within those, you've got specific opportunities that you may be working on that may potentially become engagements or projects for you. OnePlan provides all the capabilities to execute on that. So for example, the portfolio views of all those different things and the analysis around that, which we'll demonstrate to you today. The resource capacity plans themselves, so we have a current gauge on, do we have the wherewithal to deliver resources and successfully do the things that we're committing to? And the financial aspects of those in a very detailed fashion as well. Waterfall plans and estimates, agile plans and estimates, my work and a timesheet for people and team members to provide status, and the insights that we talked about as well. OnePlan really provides the bridge between that customer-facing CRM solution and the execution that needs to happen. But as you notice, these arrows are bidirectional, meaning the updates that we have here can be fed back to your CRM system so that there's information available to your people who are customer facing and managing those relationships to always understand where the current engagements stand. Now, what does that process look like? Well, let's just use this using Salesforce in this aspect. In this case, for example, you create a CRM opportunity in Salesforce and you manage the sales cycle, and it goes through its different stages. And at a certain point, you're going to have to put a proposal together. And when you got to put a proposal and quote together, you're going to need to put some detail around that so that you understand what it's really going to take to make that happen. And so you can have a reasonably assured high confidence estimate around that. So these quotes and timelines can be put together using OnePlan's work plan feature that allows you to quantify that and put that into place, which can then be fed into your proposal to the customer. On top of that, you can look at this and see, where does this fit into the mix of our existing portfolio of projects or engagements? Do we have the ability, or we have over allocations in resources, and can we do scenario modeling to understand where we might be able to start this with the customer, or where we might have to move other things and set expectations differently based on maybe things that are moving a little slower than we thought. The idea is, how do we make this fit, and how do we analyze our alternatives? And then when they become engagements, then these quotes and timelines that we put together become our plans and for execution and tracking. It becomes the basis for which we'll charge time against this project, for example. So we basically have timesheets and status reports around the time that we're actually charging against this plan. This is all provided by OnePlan. And then the reporting all around that is a natural output of this. So we're not cobbling this together out of a variety of sources and spreadsheets, etc. And then ultimately, the data that we want to go back at a high level to CRM for project status can then be provided through the integrations to send that data back so that the people who pretty much live in CRM rather than in the project execution tool can get the information they need. And ultimately, whatever your financial system is, this is where it integrates to that. So we talked about the CRM sitting on one side, OnePlan in the middle for the PSA execution pieces, and then on the other side we had feed outs to the financial system for things like billing and execution on that. Now, same thing, use case in Dynamics. If we're doing in Dynamics, in this case, I'm actually showing us using OnePlan within Dynamics, where you might have a CRM opportunity that you're doing the same thing, you quote in the timesheet using OnePlan's planning. In this case, we're surfacing it through that fused UI, right, in Dynamics, and then ultimately doing the same capacity in scenario modeling, right within there using OnePlan. And then as they become engagements, we do the execution of this, and we can surface this and work with it right within Dynamics if we want. And just like Salesforce, you could do it independently in the browser as well. But the same thing with timesheets and status reports, and ultimately getting those reports and getting that data back to Dynamics CRM so that your customer relationship managers and your account executives can actually have the information at their fingertips that they need, and ultimately get that data that's required over to the financial system, primarily time reporting and other things, so that we can bill appropriately. So with that, I'd like to go to a demonstration. Now, obviously, that process that I talked about starts in CRM. So we have a scenario here where we get this working within Salesforce. We got a scenario where we're working open opportunities in Dynamics. But let me focus it first on what OnePlan brings to the party. What happens here, and just so you all know, we actually use OnePlan for our PSA internally at OnePlan, because we not only sell software, we do engagements to help people implement and get the most out of those solutions. Now, if you notice here in this portfolio, I've got a list of elements in here. And there's 4 types of what we call plan types in here. So for example, I've got projects, which are things that have really become engagements that we're actually working on. I've got opportunities that may still be coming over from CRM, which they would have come from, in this case, a Salesforce or a Dynamics CRM, where it's an opportunity that we're tracking. There's a plan in place and a resource estimate that we got to factor in, but it's not quite a project yet. And then we might have other things we want to factor into our resource plans, like maybe more operational things that we have internally, or maybe more support things that we're doing for external customers or internal customers, so that we get a full picture of the resource capacity and the resource availability that we have if our people also have obligations in these areas as well. But ultimately, those opportunities are going to come over through the integration from either a Salesforce or a Dynamics CRM potentially. Now, in this, we have different views of this portfolio. For example, here I'm looking at a summary view of just a list of all the different elements that are in here. But for example, if I wanted to take more of a, say, an account summary or account-oriented view, this is where, as I'm looking at this, as this data originated from where it did, I've got a combination, say, in this Contoso engineering account. I've got an opportunity that's tracking, and there's some potential values coming in from that. I've got a support effort or support contract that I'm allocating resources to. Plus, I've got 3 projects that all appear to be active right now that are going on within Contoso engineering. So the idea here is everything that we're working on within a particular account is now visible from all this. Now, the views that we have in here, I've got an account summary. Maybe I want to look at something that's a little bit more schedule summary oriented. I want to understand when these things are going to deliver rather than that more financial orientation that we looked at before, and understand how these things are tracking and whether they're on track from a schedule perspective. And also being able to look at things from, say, a financial or an effort perspective. So as I look at just a financial summary, I might be focusing on, how much of that budget's being used, potentially how much gross margin we're looking at, etc. And the idea is that these views are all available to us at our fingertips, so we can save our own views and have any column of data that we create available in all these things. So if I go back here, there's also, for the more agile-oriented folks, board views. And these board views allow us to look at these things in flexible, configurable boards. So for example, here I've got accounts by overall health. So here's, I can look at the accounts that I've got that are on track versus at risk versus off track. I'm glad we don't have any there. We might be looking at these boards by, say, the state of the project. In this case, I'm using columns by state, what's proposed, active or closed or on hold or removed. And then I've got swim lanes in here on whether or not they're projects or whether or not they're opportunities. And the idea is I can look at what I've got going on from a board perspective. And by the way, at any given time, yes, there's only a subset of the data there. I can get to all the gory details on any particular opportunity or account right here through a quick pop out on what we call a quick edit form to get that information available to us. We could also look at, say, something by overall plan type. In this case, I might be looking at this by, what do I have for projects? What do I have for opportunities, etc. And then the same thing holds true with roadmap views. If you want to understand a roadmap view, this one I've got automatically, it's grouped by account. So I can see, just like I showed you, that those 4 elements I've got going for Contoso engineering. Here is the timeline for that. And actually, we can elevate things like key milestones or releases or delivery dates that we have across all these things and get these flexible views, and they're color coded by their overall health, red, yellow, green. So the idea here is that we can have all kinds of different views of our portfolio that originated from those opportunities that we started within our CRM solution. If I go back to our list view and I want to drill into a specific project, for example, or effort, let me choose this Contoso support customer using mobile. As I drill into it, there's a few different dimensions here. Now, early on in the planning cycle, while it was still an opportunity, I may have put a work plan in place. And that work plan could have been more waterfall in nature. We have what we call a schedule work type that allows us to put that waterfall a bit in place. It also allows us to come in here and, even if we wanted to, insert templates. So you can actually start from templates of your own. You could actually have your own personal templates that you use. You can have a library of online templates that you make available to your organization. You can even import templates from different sources. And you can even use our AI to actually help develop a template if you want to as well. The idea here is you can structure this plan with the estimates of the hours, the assigned resources on there, the estimated budgets and the costs, and put this all into place in a waterfall fashion. You can also, if you'd like, put together a backlog in a more agile fashion, and you can even track things like issues, risks, and changes in here through that work plan process. On top of that, when we build that work plan, we can derive from that an overall resource plan, meaning for this particular project, I've got these resources assigned. Some of them I still have generic resource assignments. I haven't put names to these yet, but as I go through here, I can see, for example, that I've got Jared on here on just one task. I've got on Gavin, I've got him on a series of tasks that are rolling up to the total amount of hours that he needs over these time frames to make those things happen. I can also say I still haven't assigned a solution consultant that I'm missing here, that I got to find somebody to assign to these particular elements and basically find potential replacements for those and find matches of who might be able to fulfill that and who might have the bandwidth in this time frame to do that. It looks like Daniel Williams might have the bandwidth to fulfill in that time frame, given that, and I can actually do a replacement of resources right here. So once again, dynamic resourcing as we go through this process. On top of that, those resource plans can actually derive labor financials. So for example, you can import from the resource plan itself, because there's rates associated with our resources in here, the labor costs that are associated with these particular projects. And you can even have other categories in here for things like travel expenses and non-labor things, software, other things that you might have in there, and really track a full estimated cost on that, as well as be able to track your actual costs and even maybe look at what you've invoiced and track that as well. And you can, at any given point in time, compare these things. So if I wanted to compare, for example, the estimated cost versus actual cost, I don't have any actual cost coming in yet, but the idea, had they been here, they'd go red, yellow, green based upon whether I'm over or under what my original estimates were. So we're tracking all those things in here. And then from a details page perspective, this is where you get the comprehensive view of everything regarding this project. You can have your life cycle stage in here, where you're at on this particular project. You have your metadata on how it's categorized, how it's going to be tracked from a timesheet perspective, where you're going to charge time to, is it at the project or a task level, et cetera, what the billing method might be that you can establish in there as well. You can actually go in and you can actually look at the current details on how the schedule's performing, how the project financials are currently performing, including things like your current gross margin and your profit and your contract amount versus what you've spent to date, how you're consuming the effort and where you stand on that, and even things like your KPIs that you like to have that can either be manually set or formula driven to understand where these projects are as far as the overall status, et cetera. So the key is all the data that you'd like around this can be managed and executed on here. And the nice part is that this can be passed back to the financial, to the CRM system as we go back, as we go forth. For example, as I look back here in Contoso engineering account back in Salesforce, I can see this Contoso support customers using mobile project is grabbing and getting pushed back data at a high level, how our overall health is, our progress, and how our start and finish are looking, what the cost is, how much work we've expended, that type of thing, as well as related items in here where, for example, like issues that may have come up that we can drill into, or tasks that are being worked on from the schedule in there, and the updates on those as well. So that information through the connector is pushed back so that the folks working in CRM can actually see those as well. And we have the same use case for it over in Dynamics as well. So also in here, as I looked at a resource plan for just this individual project, if I go into a more global resource plan, I can also see the fact that as I aggregate all this, I can look at this in a variety of ways. This resource summary has got my individual resources here, and I can look at, say, a resource that I have that has some over allocation here in Ehrlich Bachman, and I can see that he's on these projects over these time frames, and even drill into the specific tasks that are on these projects that are rolling up to that. As I'm allocating resources to my project, I'm always going to have current visibility into this. So for example, before I look at this, and let's just say I got hours here, let me just look at it in terms of FTEs. I can quickly toggle. Here, where I got Ehrlich in a situation where he was more than double booked in the month of July and over 1.5 times his capacity booked in June, I probably could have avoided this with the right visibility. Now, we have these here this way to illustrate things in our demo data, but the idea is before you allocate Ehrlich to yet another thing, you can actually always see what he's already currently got committed. Now, yes, do things slip that causes overlaps and things you have to reconcile? Yes, but this gives us current visibility at all times and gives us abilities to find ways to say, you know, what if I could get Ehrlich off of some of this stuff here? And what if I could say, you know, find him a replacement on a particular project or a plan? I could actually do that and do that same replacement here in the more global level as well. Now, for the individual contributor in this process, we have a My Work area that allows an individual contributor like Daniel Williams, who I'm logged in as right now, to see all the different plans that he has assignments on. And that could be from an Agile backlog and provide updates on those. They could be tasks from a more waterfall plan. And in this particular case, I've got issues and tasks that I've been assigned that I can status. I can just quickly check the box to complete them. I can put in % completes if that's appropriate. Whatever data you'd like to capture, you can put in this view. On top of that, you can also come in here and share notes with the project manager or the scrum master on your Agile plan. You could actually have conversation threads that allow you to enter and start conversation threads that you can collaborate with on the team members that are on these tasks and projects with you, as well as build your own to-do lists or punch lists with activities and move those through on a Kanban basis to have these punch lists or to-do items that you have in order to complete those tasks in here and work with them on that fashion as well. So the idea here is you have one place to go for your team members to see what's on their plate and to see, what they need to work on. And I could look at it from different perspectives as well. They could even work with it as actually in a Kanban board as well and move it through its completion status that way as well, if that's the way you'd like to do it. On top of that, they can participate in the process by raising issues from here, risks, proposed changes, maybe even proposed tasks for the project manager or scrum master to incorporate into their plans if you want to do that, if you want to allow that to happen. On top of the feedback from the team member, there's also the timesheet. So that timesheet allows you to then report time back on the project. It gives you a current gauge of what you've been assigned for hours and how much you've consumed. And here, before I put yet another hour on here, it looks like I've consumed all 16 hours on this retest code task on the Contoso support customer using mobile. And as I go into each element, I can actually come in here and I can put notes of explanation on each charge item. So in our billable organizations, oftentimes we get challenged by the customer on what was this for. And by having granular notes of explanation available, we can justify the time spent on these types of things as we go forward. This will actually automatically populate your timesheet. You could actually, if you're allowed to, add things that you have rights to add to your timesheet and add those to the mix. On top of that, you can have approval process where you can approve by a resource manager or by a project manager or both to get that approval process through here on your timesheets as well. Now, if I go back to the portfolio, there's a whole slew of reports that are available to us in this regard. And I'll just go through a few, but we have an OData feed that feeds a set of Power BI reports that we provide out of the box as part of the solution. But that being said, you can modify any of these reports. You can add reports of your own to the mix. And the idea is to be able to get a current sense, even for the folks that aren't hands-on within OnePlan every day. You can go directly to Power BI because these are Power BI reports. Here we're just surfacing the reports from within OnePlan for convenience. But the idea of different PSA reports, like an account dashboard, where I can come in here and look at how we're doing across our different accounts. And if I wanted to say focus on the Contoso engineering account and want to see how we're doing on a contract amount, estimated budget, and the actual fees to date, and that type of thing from a financial perspective. If I wanted to look at it, how we're doing on effort across all that, and are we overspending on the effort that we've budgeted on these things, on specific things like within specific accounts and projects within those specific accounts? Are we looking at an overall summary on how we do it on KPIs in general for Contoso engineering, on the overall health, financial health, schedule health, etc.? Can we focus on the ones that are off track and then give us an idea what's red on those, and so we can focus on it, isolate that thing very quickly? Account financials, right? Where we come in here and look at overall how we're doing on an account financial basis and look at that and make sure the health of our relationship with this customer is tracking to do well. And then we've got all other kinds of portfolio dashboards available to us for a variety of other purposes, etc. So just an idea that this is a natural output of the process and not something that we actually deal with on cobble it together and build it every reporting period. I would say this. We talked about this being a Microsoft Teams authorized application. And we can access this because we can actually add OnePlan to the left navigation because it is an authorized application. We can actually go in here and look at any particular OnePlan instance that we have access to. In this case, it's opening OnePlan right here from within Teams. So this is in general, just working with OnePlan while I'm in the overall user experience within Teams. So very similar to what I showed you before with the summary and with the account summary. But the difference in this particular view here is where I'm actually showing, in this particular case, I'm showing the fact that the actual plans in a particular account may be linked to other things. So for example, this particular project is linked to a specific team site. This one has data coming from Microsoft Project Professional. This one has some Microsoft Project Professional and some Azure DevOps data coming into it from it. And we can look at it in that regard, and we can see that there's an active connection between here and between Azure DevOps. The idea here is that we can access this from within Teams, or if you want to access it in a hub within a Microsoft, within a team itself, or in a channel within a team, you can actually add OnePlan to any of those things. So let's say, for example, I went into a specific team of which they want to track their interest in OnePlan within here. They can. So for example, OnePlan in here, you've got the posts and collaborations, the file and the content management that you might want to have in there. But now OnePlan comes up, and as you can see here, let's just go to the portfolio real quick. And you'll see that I've got, in this case, I've got some programs. I've got a tool. I got a plan here that's connected to Azure DevOps and Teams, for example. And as I drill into this, for example, I can drill in, and just like I was doing in the browser, let's just say I go to the work plan real quick. And within that work plan, I look at the backlog, because I looked at the schedule before. This backlog allows me to do more of an agile set of planning. And I can build this right here in OnePlan. I don't need another tool, but in this particular case, I'm actually connected to Azure DevOps. And if I look at that live connection to Azure DevOps, you can actually see that it's connected to an epic. And that epic allows me to then pull in the data of the backlog items and the child backlog items that are in there. And right here from within Azure DevOps, as I mentioned earlier on, you can access the OnePlan capabilities while you're working in Azure DevOps. So for example, for this particular epic, support customer using mobile, I'm in here working with this just like if I was doing it in the browser or within Teams. On top of that, I can access, if I have rights to it and I have permissions, I can access any of the other OnePlan portfolio management capabilities while I'm in here. So once again, flexibility on how you do this without task switching, and you can use OnePlan as your hub, Teams as your hub, with OnePlan being part of that hub. On top of that, we talked about what if scenario modeling. So as you end up with a portfolio of projects and you want to do some modeling in what if analysis, you can do that. And as we showed you before, for example, we showed you, resource plans associated with your portfolio. And I could come in here and say, if I did this entire portfolio, what would it take? And in this particular instance, I have severe over allocations in this demo environment, right? I'm looking at right now. I'm probably not going to resolve those. But if I'm looking at this in a priority order for my plans, and I scroll down, what if I said, okay, I got all these lower priority proposed projects. What if I, didn't do a handful of these and just rejected them out of hand? It's going to re-rack that, and it gave me a little bit of relief on the plan, but didn't quite give me all of it. I might want to do some other selections and start whittling away at this. But I also might want to put a view in here of a Gantt chart, such that if I look at the timing on this, right, and I want to say, all right, I've got this proposed, I get this opportunity coming in, and it's proposed, but I'm going to have to tell the customer potentially, and let me look at this, let me zoom in to fit it. I might have to tell them, we're not going to be able to do this until we get out farther into the next quarter. And this is when we can start that engagement, and it's going to re-rack that and see what kind of relief I can get it. So between this, we can do a combination of selection of projects and or the timing of projects, and save these different scenarios such that when we analyze the comparison between them, we can analyze the differences of those and which projects we can do and how many we can't do, etc. Now, definitely in professional services, our goal is to try to accommodate every contract that comes in, but it's also going to give us an idea of where our resource shortfalls are and where we may have to beef up our team and maybe contract or hire. So I guess on top of that, I think I'll go to OnePlan by itself in the browser. And in this particular case, I'm going to just show you an instance where Sophia, our AI, is coming into play. So let me go to a view that has a bunch of data it can analyze, because Sophia will basically analyze anything that's within its purview here within OnePlan, plus knowledge that it's in OpenAI in Azure. And in here, in this view, I could ask it all kinds of questions. It's given us samples, but you can play and do your own. But let's just say, could you look at all this data and examine the trends and provide a summary of the current state of my portfolio? And it will go in and analyze this in a comprehensive way and give me a lot of different dimensions of analysis on this. This is just one thing we can do, because it can actually help with analysis. It can help with suggestions. It can help with optimization. It can help with narrative on things like your status narratives. It can help with other things. And as it's going through there, it's examining a bunch of different data in here that for us as humans to cohesively put together that analysis, it says, overall health, most of our accounts or projects are marked as on track. However, a few are marked as at risk or off track, indicating potential issues. The estimated profit for several projects appears to be on the high side, indicating potentially profitable portfolio. However, a few projects have negative remaining cost. Project completion, the percent done shows a varying degrees of completion status, and the effort expended on projects is varying widely. And we need to maybe balance with some of the lagging projects. So all this analysis, in conclusion, the portfolio appears to be generally on track, but there are a few at-risk or off-track projects requiring attention. Ensuring that resources are allocated effectively, addressing any lagging projects will help maintain overall portfolio health and profitability. So this is just an example. Our focus here isn't today, but I just wanted to make you aware that we have this, AI assistant that you can use within OnePlan. All right, so with that, let me wrap up for you. So let's do summary and next steps. So as we talked, implementing a PSA solution is one of the most impactful decisions your services organization will make. Most organizations adopting PSA have seen dramatic improvements in efficiency, collaboration, and quality, according to the studies that we showed. It also frees up management, finance, and operations to focus on running the business and not reacting to the business, as we're not doing as many fire drills. OnePlan adds NextGen capabilities to enhance the traditional PSA discipline. Hopefully we demonstrated that to you today. And that accurate and timely information is critical for things like regulatory reporting and operational performance improvement. If we can't see what's happening, we can't respond to it, and we can't make corrective action in a timely fashion. And real-time visibility can mean the difference between low and high profitability, and the ability to anticipate and respond to changing conditions. That can be a money saver. So the next-gen capabilities, we can improve synergies with the sales process with connections to CRM. We have adaptive project management that allows us to do a combination of methodologies, Agile, waterfall, and mixtures of that. We can integrate the use of multiple tools and solutions as needed. And we have a more effective handoff from sales to service delivery if we can incorporate those things early on in the pre-sales process to get those estimates in line with how we're going to execute. And the portfolio scenario modeling for evaluating frequently changing situations, services organizations, it is a fluid situation. Customers delay. Us as consultants or service providers, we delay. Things change, and we have to be able to adapt quickly, and that scenario modeling helps us to do that. And the AI assists that we have in here help us focus our attention on things that we need to, and give us information to help us sort all that out. Now, we're passionate about this portfolio management discipline, of which PSA is really a flavor of that. And we were named again in 2022 Microsoft's PPM, or Project and Portfolio Management Partner of the Year. That was basically 3 of the last 4 years we've been named and given that designation, as well as being recognized by Gartner and Infotech and other analysts for their thought leadership in some of these areas. You can also start with free trials. We have a number of different pre-configured solution templates for OnePlan, of which professional services automation is one of them. So you can select that and work with that and get a feel for what that is. And I would suggest that you get it with the sample data in there, so you have a rich data set that you can work with. But we have other solutions that you can work with as well. Now, if you're interested in knowing what it will take we can work with you on a workshop to review your current use of solutions and tools and assess your current requirements and where you'd like to get to on this stuff. And then we can maybe help you determine what it would take to migrate into a new solution and what an implementation roadmap might look like and what the cost might be. Because we leverage a lot of things from the Microsoft Cloud, you may already own a significant portion of what you already need, and OnePlan just may be an incremental add to that. So we're happy to walk through that and give you an idea of what it might take. Now, if you're not ready for any of that, a trial or a roadmap workshop, and I did give a very high-level demonstration of all this today, we're happy to give you a free personalized one-on-one demo that addresses your pain points, your requirements, your use cases, etc. So please engage with us. We do want to engage with you. You can reach out generally to us at contact@oneplan.ai. You could research more of this stuff at our website at www.oneplan.ai. In any event, however you'd like to, we would like to engage with you and make sure you get what you need. Our tagline here at OnePlan these days is the power of one, to be able to bring everything you need into one hub and be able to work on it. In this case, we're talking about PSA today. Also, you're going to get a copy of the slides and a link to the recording, as Robert stated at the outset. If for some reason you want to reach to me directly and talk about any of the concepts that we talked here today, feel free to reach out to me. My email is down there below. So once again, thank you again for investing some of your valuable time with us. We hope to cross paths with you in the future. Have a great day.